Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into a really fascinating paper that poses a radical question. What if we could fundamentally change the way money itself works? What if we could actually build a financial system where money that's invested for a good cause is guaranteed to actually do that good? All right, so let's just start with a really frustrating question that gets right to the heart of impact investing. We pour billions, literally billions of dollars into funds that are supposed to be solving the world's biggest problems. But so often the result just feels, kind of diluted, right? You have to wonder, why does that original mission just seem to fade away? And we see the symptoms of this all over the place. You've heard the terms, right? Mission drift, where a company just kind of loses its way. Greenwashing, which is basically when the impact is more marketing spin than actual reality. And oh man, this endless cycle of ESG reports and audits that just leaves everyone feeling exhausted and honestly pretty skeptical. Well, the source material we're looking at today argues that these aren't just isolated failures. No, they're predictable outcomes of a broken system. And here's the core argument, and it's a big one. The problem isn't necessarily bad people or even bad measurement tools. The problem is baked right into the very structure of our financial system. It's an architectural flaw, one that almost guarantees that the original mission is going to get lost along the way. Okay, so let's really diagnose this thing. The paper gives it a name, the container-centric model, and it's basically the invisible force behind all those symptoms we were just talking about. So this image here just illustrates the problem perfectly. Think about it this way. In our current system, the purpose, the whole reason for the investment, it's basically just a sticky note slapped onto a financial container, like a fund or a contract. The mission is just treated like optional metadata, something that can be easily peeled off and separated from the actual money. And that's where everything starts to fall apart. See, every single time that capital gets moved or refinanced or just transferred into a new fund, someone has to rewrite that sticky note. And with every single transfer, the original intent starts to decay. It gets misinterpreted, watered down, or sometimes just flat out forgotten. It's like a giant game of telephone, but with billions of dollars, and the message is pretty much guaranteed to get garbled by the end. So here's the crucial point. This design pretty much guarantees something the paper calls semantic loss. It's a fancy term, but it just means the original meaning of the investment predictably fades away. It just evaporates. That's because the system is built to prioritize the logic of the container, things like liquidity, returns, the numbers, over the actual purpose it was supposed to serve in the first place. Okay, so if that's the problem, then what's the solution? Well, according to this paper, we don't just need a patch or a quick fix. We need to flip the entire architecture completely on its head. And this image really shows that flip perfectly. This is the new model, and it's called Idea-Native Finance. And the logic is simple. Here, the idea, the mission itself, is no longer just a passenger along for the ride. It's the driver. The purpose is the master, and the financial container, well, that's just the servant that is literally programmed to follow its instructions. Now, to make this actually work, the mission itself has to be totally transformed. It stops being just a footnote in some dusty prospectus and becomes what the tech world calls a first-class object. Think of it as a durable, independent digital thing, an entity that the capital is structurally, physically bound to obey. And what's really cool here is how this model actually formalizes purpose. So a mission object isn't just some vague, feel-good statement. No, it has specific machine-readable properties. You've got a charter, which lays out the intent. You have constraints, which are the boundaries. You've got metrics to actually measure success, and stewards, who are like the guardians of the mission. This whole thing makes purpose a tangible asset, something you can manage just as rigorously as the money itself. All right, so how does this all come together? Well, it builds into what might be the most powerful concept in the whole paper, the idea of creating capital that can actually remember its purpose, no matter where it goes or whose hands it passes through. The name for this is semantic agency. And what it means is that capital is no longer just this passive, forgetful thing, because it's permanently hardwired to its mission object. The money itself becomes an agent for its original purpose. It is structurally bound to act in alignment with that mission, and it doesn't matter who's managing it or how many times it gets transferred, it just remembers. So this process creates this direct, unbreakable chain of cause and effect. As you can see in this flow, it starts with the original idea, the semantic content, that directly shapes the rules of the game, the decision architecture. That in turn dictates how the money gets spent, the capital allocation, which naturally leads to outcomes that are genuinely, truly aligned with that original purpose. The chain is never, ever broken.
And the payoff for all this, it's huge. Because the purpose sticks around, capital doesn't have to be a one-and-done deal anymore. It doesn't get used up. It can be returned and then redeployed again and again and again. So we move from this single-use, disposable logic to one of perpetual regeneration. The mission actually starts to compound and get stronger with every single cycle.
So what does all this mean for the real world, right? What are the implications? Well, this new architecture has profound, just huge consequences for the entire impact investing world, especially when it comes to its oldest, most persistent problem.
It lets us finally shift our entire strategy. For decades, impact investing has basically been playing defense. It's been all about compliance, restrictions, and just trying to do less bad. Semantic Finance lets us finally go on offense. It lets us design systems of capital that are truly generative and are actively, creatively focused on doing more good.
And honestly, this is the mic drop moment from the paper. In this new architecture, greenwashing isn't just discouraged by some audit or regulation. It becomes structurally impossible. Any action that goes against the mission isn't up for debate or interpretation anymore. It's a detectable, structural violation of the system's core logic. It's like trying to break the code. There is literally nowhere to hide. So think about what this really means. By encoding our deepest intentions directly into the DNA of our capital, we could create a financial system that's capable of stewarding huge multi-generational goals. Things like healing an entire ecosystem or funding scientific research for centuries, long, long after any of us are gone. It really asks us to imagine a world where our money doesn't just work for us, but for the future we actually want to create.